So it's easy to make judgments in terms of wall and how brave you would be, and how it's not a necessarily a big thing, especially if you're not involved or not near the wall itself. But the way a wall changes the landscape, the way it changes life itself, is something that very few people realize. And today I'll look at Ukrainian side of things to show you what it looks like, to give you more of an idea how it unfolds and how it happens. And once more, like usual, I'm gonna say again, I don't pick sides on any front of any of these situations in the world. Um, it's tragic and people lose their lives, so it's not something to take lightly. And there's always a lot of grey space involved in terms of war and conflicts. But like I said, let's quickly run through this. I'm gonna try not to make this a long video. This is the eastern side of the Ukraine. This is just to give you a glimpse at war zones and what happens during wars. I have highlighted quite a few areas here that we'll take a look at. I'm not going to try to pronounce these cities' names, these towns' names. Unfortunately, my Russian is not that good. But let's zoom in here. There's one place specifically here that we'll start at. Ironically, Square of Peace. You'll see there's quite a bit of scarring on this building, Square of Peace. You'll see a lot of buildings around this one has a lot of damage to them. This whole city has a number of buildings that has war damage, artillery fire. Obviously, you'll see a lot of buildings that's got damage. One thing to take note of in war zones, that you will notice even from flipping space, is the fact that the roads are quiet. There's no cars on these streets, nothing at all. And it's not usually like this. To give you an idea what it usually is like, also take into consideration that the satellite views are more up to date than the street views, and I don't usually go to street views, but let's see what we can find in regards to street views. You'll see those blue dots. We'll click on one of them to give you a good idea what it is like normally. When it throws that out, it means, yeah, there we go. Should load a street view. And this is when it was a peaceful area, when people went about their business, daily lives, get in your car, go to work. There's a family walking there. Assume it's a couple and a child, their child. This guy's got a breakdown. But this is peacetime. So obviously they're not going to have Google cars driving around taking pictures in a war zone, an active war zone. So I would assume that this was just prior to hostilities breaking out in Ukraine. Normal everyday life, people living their lives, going to work, just being themselves. And that quickly changed to this. A lot of destruction took place in the city. You'll see there's many buildings that don't even exist anymore. There's some impacts of mortar shells or artillery shells. A lot of buildings that does not exist anymore. And once again, look at the roads, how quiet they are. Not a car driving on these roads. And when you do find them, it's usually wrecks standing next to the road. Now, let's move a bit more to the south. Unfortunately, my orientation is a bit out, but let's see. All right, so this is another war zone. Well, all these are war zones, but you'll see a lot of impact craters from artillery pieces, mortars, and such. All these little dots that you see on the screen are impact sites. And especially close to rivers and bridges, you'll note that fierce fighting usually takes place in these areas. And keep in mind, many of these were houses, homes, people used to live here, and now they are gone. Unfortunately, on Google Earth, the resolution is not always that good. You'll see the bridge. The side of the bridge seems to have been destroyed. Many of the bridges in this area will be gone because it will be destroyed by either one of the sides, preventing an advance or um, securing a retreat from a hot zone. You'll see on this side of the bridge total devastation and destruction. Look at all those impact craters. And once again, you'll notice the roads are empty. Now you'll have to ask yourself the question, where did all the people go? Unfortunately, there's close to, or even more than 500,000 people that lost their lives in this conflict already. And those that did not perish moved to different parts. Either the side of Ukraine that's still untouched by war, or different countries altogether, which compounds the migrant issues in the world. And the same thing will apply to the Gaza Strip. If Israel, as it says, as far as I can understand, they want all the Palestinians to move to Egypt, which is a different country, and I do not expect other countries to just let 2 million people come across their border. Total destruction, like you can see. Even the places that seems quite intact, you'll see there's still no cars on the roads, no people anywhere. And like I said, bridges don't last long in war zones. If you want to cover your retreat, you destroy the bridge. That's how it works. This is a railway bridge, and there's many of them. That's totally in pieces, nothing left. Now, there's another interesting thing. I called this a day-night spot, and I'll explain to you why, to explain my point. You'll see one side of the screen is a different shade than the other. There you'll see some vehicles. This is post, I almost want to say post-apocalypse, but for these people it's the same thing, to be honest. This side is after the conflict started. This side, where the shade is a bit darker, you'll notice many cars, trucks, people going about their business, living their lives. This side, not a car in sight. Everyone is gone. There's not a person living in the city anymore. They all left, and you'll see there's some wreckage, shells of what used to be buildings that's visible. So I classify this as a day-night spot to give you an idea of what life was like before on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side what it is like now. Not a soul in sight. There's no cars on these roads. The cars that are here are standing on sidewalks. Unfortunately, can't zoom in that far, otherwise it gets a bit distorted. But it's just to give you an idea what war does to a place or a country. There's a few more sites I will show you. Now you'll see all those little round marks there. Those are all impact craters. They used to be in high school. I doubt it's in use anymore. It's a scene of total destruction. Looks like literally a hurricane came through here. You'll see some of the marks here. I suspect that is armored cars, vehicles, even tanks that's made them, but there is nothing left of this town as well. That probably used to be an apartment building. Like I indicated there, there's nothing left of this entire town. Neighborhood upon neighborhood. Not an apartment building, seems there's nothing left there either. You can see these impact craters literally from space. All those little dots are impact craters. Can you imagine the amount of shells that had to be dropped on the Ukraine? And the same thing is currently happening in Gaza, and yeah, that will cause another wave of refugees, and I don't think the world can actually afford it at this stage. But it goes to show you there is nowhere that is safe when all-out war breaks out. There is literally nowhere. It's a question of luck, not skill or how good you are at survival. Um, yeah, I suspect you can see an armored car. Once again, no cars on these streets. The only vehicles you'll find on these roads are military vehicles like armored cars or support vehicles, some trucks and so forth. Um, Speaking of which, I did mark a couple of them as well. Um, let's take a look. There's more military vehicles. Looks like support vehicles, seems to be trucks taking supplies most likely to the front lines. Front lines, unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to show you um, because many of these pictures are not that up to date. This is, I suspect, more to the start of the conflict, time period wise. So more armored cars and truck support vehicles most likely here. Like I said, resolution unfortunately not that great when you zoom in too much. To give you another idea of the brutality of war and the fact that nowhere is safe, and it's not a question of skill when it comes to surviving a war. Look at all these impact craters. Those little dots, there's nowhere that you would be safe during a full-scale war. Once again, note the roads, no vehicles. No one lives in this country anymore, or this part of the country, except for military personnel. Endless fields of craters all over. Another town where there is nothing left. Obviously, as these guys retreat, the guys that's attacking are shelling and bombing as they go along, and as they retreat, the same process repeats with the effect that there's nothing left at the end of the day. The only thing that should happen here is peace. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. No one knows when that will take place. But like you can see here, not a building standing, not a roof on one of these buildings. Total devastation. Another picture that indicates the difference between a country at war and one that's not at war. You'll see the shade changes slightly from about that mark onwards. Here you'll see civilian vehicles like there. I think the conflict did already start here, but it wasn't in full swing yet. Here on this side, you'll just see military vehicles. From there, this direction, you'll see civilian vehicles. There's supply truck, army vehicles, potentially armored cars and tanks here. More supply trucks, just military vehicles, and you'll see no people anywhere here. There is literally nothing good about war. It creates more war into the future. If you look at Gaza, for example, those people, those kids that grow up in that environment is going to remember what's happening to them right now. And I'm not justifying any terrorist attacks that took place, but the way that Israel's handling this now is going to determine their future. And the same thing applies to all situations. And like I said previously, there's a gray in all wars. There's not just a black and white side. It's complicated to a massive degree, and there's not much that that can be done in that regard. That's just the facts. But there's major cities or towns that's totally being laid to waste. There's a lot of intact buildings in this one, for example, but no one stayed there. Everyone evacuated and left. Not much on the roads. You'll even see the railroads. There's nothing left. Look at all these buildings. And why would you take a chance by staying there, risking your family's life? Not a car on the vehicles, the only cars that's on the a car on the roads or vehicles on the roads. Only vehicles you'll find here and there is military vehicles or destroyed civilian vehicles. The land literally looks scarred. This is what war looks like. Most of these fields, it seems like it's been burnt, most likely because of the war, but you'll still see impact craters everywhere. All these cities and towns deserted, just occupied by military units, more than likely. This is the story in the east of the Ukraine. So I would urge anyone that is pro-war to consider this happening in their nation or neighborhood. There's nowhere you'll be safe. Why would you encourage war in any way, shape, or form? And there's not really any good guys in a war. There's always someone else's story to be heard. And like I said, I would not be picking sides. But to conclude, I would just say that you should keep your eyes on the Middle East. Turkey is still going to play a key role in this. Speaking of Turkey, there's Istanbul, gateway to the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. It would be good to keep an eye on them in terms of potential actions. They are not at this stage very happy with the way things are going in Israel and how it's being handled. Israel is going to have to be careful with their next steps because it might or will determine their future. There's a lot that could happen in the next few weeks or so. Gaza, you'll see the city here that we're going to zoom into now is still intact. There's no real war scarring visible yet. It takes a few weeks or even months for satellite imagery to update. So the damage caused by the Israeli attack on Gaza will not be visible yet from space. And like I said, when you go to Street View, you're not going to be able. Let me put it like this: it's going to be footage that's prior any attack because there won't be Google cars driving around taking videos and footage. This is one of the camera angles inside Gaza at some stage. Looks like a mosque. So yeah. You can travel the whole world through Google Earth, which is pretty nice. To give you an example, let's quickly go out and see if we can find a big major city. You can literally view the whole world on Google Earth, and unfortunately, it's not that up to date. It takes time to update the satellite imagery. It doesn't update every week or two. It takes a few months. So the reason I showed you the Middle East, or well, more specifically, I mean the Ukraine conflict, is to give you an idea what war does to a country. It's total destruction. There's nowhere to be safe. For the purposes of showing you a decent street view, let's see if we can find a big city somewhere. I think we can use New York for an example. Let's see if we can find Manhattan. There we go. There's Manhattan. Almost done with this video. I think I proved my point, or showed you what I wanted to show you. But this is Manhattan. Let's go to the World Trade memorial sites. There is where the World Trade Centers used to stand. A lot of graphics to update here, so it takes a bit longer than I would like, unfortunately. You could even view this in 3D. Then you'll see all the buildings in the surrounding area. Not all the buildings are highlighted in 3D, but most are. We'll go back to 2D and we'll pick Street View. Then you can basically click on anywhere that's blue and it will take you down to a street view. And the street view is also actual pictures that the Google vehicles take. So that's the building that was constructed after the World Trade Center's terrorist attack, or supposed terrorist attack, let me put it like that. And you can walk every direction that the arrows allow you to. So you can go forward or you can go back. If you don't have experience on Google Earth, this is how you use it. And that's why I said you can be on Google Earth. If you see one of their vehicles driving around, you might be on Google Earth. That's when you move forward or backwards. One of the most populated cities on Earth. You can even see what, if you want to go visit a place on Earth, a good way to check it out before you go there is on Google Earth like this. When there's intersections, you can change direction. And in some instances, you can even go inside of buildings. So that's quite interesting. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, and I hope it makes you think twice about supporting warfare in whichever shape. This should be diplomatic solutions. I know it's not always easy, but I think, yeah, we as humanity should think twice about encouraging war and even funding it in any way, shape, or form. And I think we should take a look at the bigger picture and how it impacts humanity as a whole. So, yeah, I'm not going to end with a skew Earth. Let me straighten this out. Because of my being used to Africa being in the middle, let's end it there. Thank you so much. Enjoy that.